This is Part 2, Episode 159. Xiao Yan was a little startled when he heard the ninth Tianzuan's sudden screech. His peripheral vision caught sight of the ground below that been dyed red with fresh blood. From the looks of it, this Hall of Souls did indeed have an even stronger hidden expert who had not attacked. Regardless of whether there is a helper, I will kill this person first. Xiao Yan's eyes flickered. A ferocious glow flashed an instant later, as he abruptly pushed his hand forward. The rate at which the dark black light circle spread suddenly soared. The ninth Tianzuan was terrified when he sensed the frightening energy behind him. Do Qi erupted from his body before he swung back, but no matter how he retaliated, the spreading speed of the black light did not slow by even a little. Fourth brother. It was futile regardless how the ninth Tianzuan struggled. His face also became void of color, as a sharp cry once again sounded. Bang! The ground violently trembled after the second scream from the ninth Tianzuan sounded. It was possible to see the ground swiftly crumble apart. Within the blink of an eye, a deep abyss that was a couple thousand feet long appeared in front of many stunned gazes. Following the appearance of this deep abyss, a nauseating bloody scent surged out in all directions, and some incomparably sharp screeches were vaguely emitted. The appearance of the deep abyss surprised Xiao Yan in the sky. It was unexpected that such a being was hiding under the ground. It seemed that the people from the Hall of Souls had come prepared. Although Xiao Yan was surprised in his heart, his reaction was not slow. He pushed his right hand forward and a black light circle merged with the ninth Tianzuan's left arm like lightning. A miserable cry was immediately emitted from the ninth Tianzuan's mouth after his left arm was dragged into the black light. An unblockable tearing force surged out of the light circle. In an instant, it tore the ninth Tianzuan's arm until it became blurry. If he had not unleashed all of his Do Qi to block the tearing force, his arm would have turned into dust at that moment. Even though it didn't instantly disappear, the tearing force still swiftly entered his arm and caused his muscles, blood vessels, and even bones to swiftly explode and deform. Humph! Xiao Yan coldly cried out, after having successfully grabbed the ninth Tianzuan and suddenly clenched his hand. The suction force within the light circle suddenly surged and pulled the rest of the ninth Tianzuan's body toward it. Crack! The ninth Tianzuan's heart was at a completely shock after having sensed Xiao Yan's intentions. He clenched his teeth, curled his hand into a blade, and chopped off his own arm. Trying to escape. Xiao Yan was startled when he realized that the ninth Tianzuan was this ruthless. He immediately laughed in his heart. The black light circle once again sped up and grew a couple more times before once again approaching the ninth Tianzuan. This caused the ninth Tianzuan's speed to be severely limited. At this moment, he finally sensed just how frightening this great heaven creation palm was. When Xiao Yan was only a 4-star Dozun, the ninth Tianzuan was able to rely on his strength, which had far surpassed Xiao Yan's, to block the great heaven creation palm. However, their levels were similar now. He no longer possessed any strength to resist it. Some despair surfaced in the ninth Tianzuan's eyes before a reaction finally occurred in the enormous abyss below. The rushing sound of wind appeared as a 1,000-foot-large bloody glow erupted. It agglomerated into a blood dragon that emitted a roar as it ruthlessly charged toward Xiao Yan with a shocking momentum. Xiao Yan's expression changed as he sensed the ripple that was suddenly transmitted from below, but he did not turn around to receive the attack. Instead, his eyes were dark and cold as they stared at the ninth Tianzuan's face, which had revealed a joy when this attack appeared. He coldly smiled and pushed his hand forward again, and a black light circle rushed out with lightning-like speed. Finally, it devoured the ninth Tianzuan's body. The ninth Tianzuan's terrified cry was emitted from within the black light, after being devoured by it. He did not expect Xiao Yan to completely ignore the powerful blood dragon attack. Bang! The blood dragon, that had whistled over ruthlessly collided with Xiao Yan's body the moment the black circular light devoured the ninth Tianzuan's body. As it ruthlessly collided with Xiao Yan, a rich blood-colored light exploded in the sky. Watching the spreading blood light, which bloomed in the sky like a blood-colored sun, the expressions of Cai Lin's group on the wall changed. They had not expected Xiao Yan to endure this blow. The frightening energy contained within the blood dragon earlier was enough to kill a 6-star Dozun on the spot. The wall had descended into a dead silence. There was still some joy from earlier, but the joy was permeated with shock at this moment. Those from the Hall of Souls always like to hide in the darkness like rats. This silence continued for over a dozen seconds as everyone's heart sank. At this moment, a faint voice suddenly echoed across the sky. A swoosh sound appeared as almost every pair of eyes gathered in the sky. A skinny figure was stepping through the air as he slowly walked out of the spreading blood light. An earth-shaking cheer abruptly erupted from the fortress when that skinny figure appeared in front of their eyes. Kaylin and the other sighed in relief when they heard the cheers beside their ears. They had been terrified by the unexpected situation earlier. A faint exclamation rang out of the deep abyss when Xiao Yan appeared to be unharmed after receiving that attack. A countless number of people heard a splashing sound from the abyss. It appeared as though the blood was flowing within it. The sound of flowing liquid became louder in front of countless pairs of eyes. A moment later, a blood color suddenly surfaced from the deep abyss. It was a vicious scarlet sea. The viscous blood sea continued to rise from the deep abyss. It finally came to a slow halt when it was level with edges of the deep abyss. The blood sea flowed and a completely blood-red figure slowly appeared. The figure lifted both of his scarlet eyes as he looked indifferently at Xiao Yang. A hoarse voice resounded over the sky. You are indeed worthy of being a person that the Hall Chief attaches much importance to. You do possess the ability to be proud. Xiao Yang studied that human figure below. At this moment, this person was wearing a long blood-colored robe. His long hair was scarlet in color, and his red eyes caused one's heart to feel a bloody scent spread over when they looked in one's direction. This sudden blood figure also caused many experts from the Profound Lion sect to be stunned. Even they were unaware that such a mysterious expert was present in their camp. What frightening strength this person has. The hearts of some experts from the Yang Alliance sank upon seeing this blood figure. Although they were unable to sense the blood figure's exact strength, it was obvious that the strength of this person was the strongest within the Profound Lion sect's camp. Shuehi Zunja. The three Hu elders, who were battling those three experts from the Hall of Soul, had stopped because of this scene. Their eyes gravely observed that blood-colored figure, as they stated in a deep voice. Shuehi Zunja. Xiao Yang lifted his brow. Junior Pavilion Chief, be careful. This person is an extremely renowned expert within the Central Plains. His blood-transforming grand skill is extremely mysterious. Many top-level experts have died in his hands back then. However, he suddenly vanished, and it seems that he has joined the Hall of Souls. The eldest Hu brother spoke with a grave expression. Ha ha, that was a name from a long time ago. All of you can now address me as Fourth Tianzuan or perhaps Shuehi Tianzuan. The human figure, who was standing in the sea of blood, lifted his head and laughed in a hoarse manner when he heard the eldest Hu brother's words. Fourth Tianzuan, her. Xiao Yang narrowed his eyes. The Hall of Souls really had many hidden experts. This person should be a peak Dozun of the 9th star. He was only one step away from the Ban Xing class. It was unexpected that the Hall of Souls would dispatch such an expert. If he had not hurried back in time, the Yang Alliance fates would have been worrying. You really act leisurely. However, you are too lazy to even rescue the life of your companion. Xiao Yang faintly laughed. He randomly waved his hand, and a corpse that had been torn until its form was altered flew out. Finally, it landed in front of the 4th Tianzuan. From the looks of it, it was the 9th Tianzuan who had been struck by the great heaven creation palm earlier. However, he had completely lost his life. It is pointless to rescue trash, who has failed many times. The 4th Tianzuan glanced at the corpse. He widened his mouth and a blood arrow shot from it. This blood arrow caused the 9th Tianzuan to turn into a pool of blood that exploded. His voice was void of any emotion as he spoke. Emotions are indeed unnecessary to you people from the Hall of Souls. Xiao Yang mockingly lifted his mouth and spoke after witnessing this scene. Ha ha, emotions should be abandoned. The 4th Tianzuan laughed when he heard Xiao Yang's words. He immediately shook his head and softly sighed. Originally, I did not wish to intervene, but that fellow is too useless and even ended up dying in your hands. Since this is the case, allow the old me to act on his behalf. The old me will bring back all the people with the blood of the Xiao clan. The sea of blood in the deep abyss suddenly shot out, and formed many large blood pillars, after the fourth Qinzuan's words sounded. The blood fog spread, and a dense bone-chilling aura slowly swept out in all directions from the fourth Qinzuan's body. A cold and sinister aura swept away from the fourth Qinzuan's body like a storm. The blood of those within his aura boiled at this moment, regardless of whether or not they were from the Yang Alliance or Profound Lion sect. Immediately, one could hear a bang, bang, bang sound as countless numbers of bodies exploded. A pool of bloody pulp dyed the ground until it was incomparably red. This indiscriminate killing by the fourth Qinzuan naturally shocked both parties. Those people close to the abyss hurriedly pulled back. Within a short instant, the entire area had become empty. Bastard, what are you doing? Don't tell me that you have forgotten our agreement. A short distance away, Xiao, who had been seriously injured by a strike from Xiao Yan, had finally caught his breath at this moment. He immediately became furious and cried out loud when he saw the fourth Qinzuan began to kill people from the Profound Lion sect's army. The fourth Qinzuan floated over the sea of blood. His eyes were indifferent as they glanced at Xiao, who had cried out furiously. He slowly raised his hand and pointed at Xiao from some distance away before abruptly clenching his hand. Bang! Xiao's furious cry suddenly halted when fourth Qinzuan clenched his hand. Xiao's body exploded in an instant, causing blood to shoot out in all directions. The faces of the Profound Lion sect's experts were greatly shocked when they saw that this person had killed even the chief of the Profound Lion sect. Although they were extremely furious, none of them dared to let out an angry cry. Even Xiao was unable to block a random palm from the fourth Qinzuan. Even less needed to be said for them, and some of the experts in the Profound Lion sect's camp had been threatened and lured over to the Hall of Souls. They could not be called loyal to the Profound Lion sect anymore. Naturally, they would not take the initiative to help them. Pull back the Yang Alliance's front line. This fellow experiences mood swings. In any case, it would be suicidal for an ordinary army to get involved. Kaylin knit her brows and ordered in a deep voice. Understood. Xiao Ding and Xiao Li by the side nodded when they heard her command. They quickly relayed her orders to swiftly withdraw all soldiers outside of the fortress. Now, we can only hope that Xiao Yang will be able to deal with this person. Otherwise, the mysterious yellow fortress will not avoid a terrible bloodshed. Hai Budong spoke with a grave face. Even Kaylin could only nod her head when she heard these words. The strength of that so-called fourth Qinzuan was obviously great. None of the people present could contend with him. Hence, they could only place all their hope on Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang in the sky frowned as he watched the fourth Qinzuan randomly cause a person's body to self-destruct. An expression of contemplation flashed across his eyes. This person is called Shuihe Qinzuan, Blood River Qinzuan. Moreover, he also knows the blood transforming grand skill. He probably can control the blood in a person's body. Xiao Yang had come across experts who could control the blood of another person. However, none of them had been as tough as this fourth Qinzuan. A 6-star Dozun's body had exploded with a flick of his hand. Although Xiao's serious injuries factored in, the mysterious technique of the fourth Qinzuan was the main reason. The sea of blood suddenly rippled while Xiao Yang was thinking to himself. The fourth Qinzuan stepped forward and walked through empty air. He took a step at a time, and finally stopped a short distance away from Xiao Yang. His blood-colored hair fluttered and a bloody scent quietly spread across the sky. Peak of an 8-star Dozun. This is indeed quite strong. The fourth Qinzuan studied Xiao Yang. An ugly smile rose onto his face as he lifted his hand and violently clenched it in Xiao Yang's direction. The space in front of the fourth Qinzuan immediately became distorted after he clenched his hand. A thought passed through Xiao Yang's heart as he observed the fourth Qinzuan with a frown. A majestic Do Qi broke from his body. The Do Qi transformed into a fierce flame that wrapped around him. Do Qi will not be able to block my blood-transforming grand skill. The fourth Tianzuan laughed in a hoarse voice when he saw Xiao Yang's Do Qi. The fourth Tianzuan's words had just sounded when Xiao Yang sensed the blood within his body began to churn uncontrollably. He could vaguely feel that his blood was about to burst from their vessels. Xiao Yang's expression changed slightly when he sensed the transformation occurring in his body. This fellow's so-called blood-transforming grand skill was indeed unique. However, Xiao Yang was about to suppress the churning blood within his body when his heart suddenly pounded. He quickly noticed a strange strength spreading from his heart. Finally, this strength spread to his blood vessels, and the boiling feeling disappeared almost the moment the strength came into contact with his blood. This is the merged bloodline from the heavenly tomb. This change caused Xiao Yang to feel startled as some surprise flashed across his eyes. It was unexpected that this newly formed bloodline was this powerful. Even the fourth Tianzuan's blood-transforming grand skill was unable to affect it. Looks like your blood-transforming grand skill is not as strong as you described it. Xiao Yang lifted his head after sensing the blood gradually calming within his body. He smiled at the fourth Tianzuan while he spoke. What happened? The fourth Tianzuan was startled when there was no response from Xiao Yang's body. He frowned. This blood-transforming grand skill was a Qian-class Do skill. Even some elite Banshings would be affected by it, causing them to split their attention to suppress it. Why was it that this skill was completely useless against Xiao Yang? Xiao Yang slightly smiled. Both of his hands quickly formed many mysterious seals. After the formation of these seals, a mysterious clan tattoo slowly appeared on his brows. Xiao Clan's clan tattoo. You have actually activated the Xiao clan's bloodline. The fourth Tianzuan was startled when he saw the clan tattoo on Xiao Yang's brows. The Xiao clan's bloodline had already been wasted, everyone knew that. Why could Xiao Yang summon the clan tattoo? No one could answer the fourth Tianzuan question. Xiao Yang's aura suddenly soared when the clan tattoo appeared. Within a short instant, it was no longer inferior to the fourth Tianzuan's aura. The strengthening effect of the clan tattoo was perfectly displayed at this moment. Xiao Yang comfortably inhaled a mouthful of air as he sensed the surging Do Qi from within his body. He immediately lifted his head and smiled at the frowning fourth Tianzuan. His foot stepped forward, and his body vanished the moment his foot landed. Even though the blood-transforming grand skill is useless against you, I am still able to sense the flow of the blood in your body to determine your position. Therefore, your speed is useless against me. The fourth Tianzuan coldly laughed when he saw Xiao Yang vanish. He swiftly took 3 steps back as wave after wave of blood-red Do Qi flowed out of his body and gathered into a thick blood cuticle on his palm. He then ruthlessly smashed it toward the empty space to the right. Come out. A stench-filled palm wind arrived and the space immediately became distorted. A figure also appeared. It was Xiao Yang. Although Xiao Yang's position was detected, he did not show any signs of dodging. Instead, he stepped forward and allowed the fourth Tianzuan's attack to land on his chest. At the same time, a hot fist suddenly whizzed out. Its swiftness did not allow time for any reactions. The palm wind ruthlessly struck the fourth Tianzuan's body. This fighting method did not involve any skill. It was a literal exchange of blows. Bang! The fists of the two ruthlessly landed on the other party's body. However, Xiao Yang's shoulders merely shook after receiving a blow from the fourth Tianzuan. His expression was not altered. On the other hand, the fourth Tianzuan was forced a couple of steps back by Xiao Yang's punch. His throat also emitted a moan. Xiao Yang's incomparably hot fist wind was too much for him to endure. It seems that you will not be able to endure if we exchange blows in this manner. Xiao Yang flicked his clothes with a smiling face and softly commented. The fourth Tianzuan's face was gloomy. His eyes stared at the cloth on Xiao Yang's body. After having exchanged blows, he was naturally aware that his attack had mostly been absorbed by that strange cloth earlier. However, he could not understand why the remaining force didn't harm Xiao Yang. The rest of the attack had naturally been absorbed by the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor hidden in Xiao Yang's skin, but such a secret would never be understood by the fourth Tianzuan no matter how he thought about it. Not only were Xiao Yang's clothes strange, but even his skin was extremely mysterious. The fourth Tianzuan stared at Xiao Yang in a dark and solemn manner. Xiao Yang was immune to his attacks, but he wasn't able to ignore the other party's attacks. Such a battle really caused one to feel stifled. However, this fourth Tianzuan was not an ordinary person. He was aware that his attack from earlier did not harm Xiao Yang. The only reason was that its strength was insufficient. Since this strength was lacking, he should use a greater strength to smash Xiao Yang into dregs. Blood transforming grand skill, great devouring blood technique. The fourth Tianzuan's face was ferocious. A sinister cry resounded over the land like thunder. After this cry sounded, the bodies of anyone weaker than an elite Dozun within a 10,000-foot radius exploded at this moment. They transformed into blood that continuously poured into the fourth Tianzuan's body. At the same time, the sea of blood in the abyss below began to whistle as it transformed into a monstrous bloody wave that surged into his body. While the fourth Tianzun was devouring all this blood, his originally still aura started to diverge. After which, it slowly soared. Xiao Yang, do not threaten this venerable self. Today, I will capture all the blood of your Xiao clan along with the bloodline that you have activated. The sky was altered as the sea of blood spread. A sinister voice that was accompanied by a frightening pressure that pervaded the sky. A solemn expression flashed across Xiao Yang's eyes as he sensed the fourth Tianzuan's soaring aura. This person possessed some ability to form such a fierce name for himself within the central plains. The fourth Tianzuan's current aura had clearly surpassed that of an ordinary expert at the peak of the Dozun class. Of course, this did not mean that the fourth Tianzuan had already reached the Banxing class, because such a thing was impossible. There might only be a step from the peak of the Dozun class to the Banxing class, but this step was as vast as the sky. The gap between the two was so terrifying that it was difficult to describe. This could be seen from the way Yao Lao's strength had remained at the peak of the Dozun class for many years. It wasn't until he borrowed the strength from his new body to break through. Regardless of how frightening one's talent was, trying to reach the Banxing class was not an easy task. This short step was one that countless of talented individuals hated and failed. They would feel an incomparable regret until the moment they died. The reason that this occurred was because this short one step hid a unique training method. Only those experts who had approached this level would be able to sense this kind of unique training. Some of the top experts in the Central Plains region called this unique training method the 9 changes to turn Sheng Saint. The so-called 9 changes could be considered a quantifier to measure the gap between the peak of the Dozun class and the Banxing class. After all, the gap between the two was really too terrifying. One needed to use an even finer ranking system with enormous positions between levels to differentiate the difficulty. The 9 changes were not complicated. Simply put, they were considered 9 compressions and suppressions. The moment the Do Qi within the body of an expert, at the peak of the Dozun class, showed signs of being full, and could no longer be increased, was the moment the 9 changes began. One would then need to shrink and suppress the Do Qi within one's body. Only then would the interior of one's body have enough space to accept new Do Qi. One needed to perform this compression once the Do Qi became filled again. This cycle would repeat, and only after 9 suppressions would it reach a complete state. The Do Qi within one's body would experience a change in quality under each compression. Only then would one cross over the unmeasurable skylight gap and advance to the Xing class. Due to this, some of the experts, who had reached this stage, would describe the training hidden at the peak of the Dozun class as 9 changes. One could only become a Xing Saint after 9 changes. It was easy to talk about these 9 changes, but they would really test one's limits. Just imagine the frightening amount of Do Qi an expert at the peak of the Dozun class could contain. That needed to be filled and filled 9 times. Such a requirement was indeed worthy of the description horrifying. Although the 9th Tianzuan from earlier was also at the peak of the Dozun class, he was a 1-change peak Dozun. He was even a little weaker than Xiao Yang after he had activated the clan tattoo. After having absorbed so much energy from the fresh blood, the fourth Tianzuan had soared to the third change. Of course, the Banxing class was still far enough away that it was difficult to feel. If the fourth Tianzuan reached the Banxing class, Xiao Yan would not have a chance of victory. The fourth Tianzuan's eyes also became scarlet with his soaring aura. Although this blood-transforming great skill was able to absorb the energy from the blood of a person, the sequela was quite serious. Within 1 month of using it, the fourth Tianzuan's body would enter a state where he was close to death. Even someone at the Do Wang class would easily be able to kill him. Therefore, the fourth Tianzuan would usually not dare to use the secret technique unless he had no choice, but for this current situation, he would not only fail his mission if he did not activate it, he would also be defeated by Xiao Yan. This was something that he could not endure. Roar! His scarlet eyes stared at Xiao Yan. A dense smile surfaced on his face as a chilling roar was emitted from his throat. Waves of frightening blood-colored fog surged from the fourth Tianzuan's body in all directions after he roared. It gathered into a thick blood cloud as a stench spread from it. Xiao Yan frowned as he stared at the bloody cloud in the sky. He could sense the frightening energy that had gathered within the bloody cloud, and he did not dare to slight it. His hand rubbed in front of him, and 4 clusters of heavenly flames appeared. A high temperature quickly spread when these heavenly flames appeared. They incinerated the surrounding stench. Xiao Yan inhaled another breath of air after summoning the 4 clusters of heavenly flames. His hand seal changed and a cluster of grey flames was spat out of his mouth. This flame might not be as strong as those 4 heavenly flames, but it emitted an extremely powerful aura. This was the fake heavenly flame that Xiao Yan had refined, life-transforming flame. 5-ring flame expelling technique. A low and deep cry was emitted from Xiao Yan's mouth as the 5 clusters of flames in front of him suddenly soared. They turned into 5,000 feet large fire spirits, and gave off many loud beast roars above Xiao Yan's head. Gather! The fire spirits quickly took shape. Xiao Yan once again coldly cried out. 5 enormous fire spirits formed a mysterious formation, and began to rapidly rotate. Finally, it turned into a couple 100 feet across 5-colored fire coil with a buzzing wind. It rotated wildly above his head as a hot wind spread. The bloody cloud in the distance began to fluctuate. Humph! Bloody evil sky demon palm. The fourth Tianzuan let out a cold snort when he saw this from afar. He widened his mouth and a blood pillar shot out. It shot into the bloody cloud in the sky, and the cloud's color immediately dimmed. The blood cloud churned and suddenly burst apart. A 10,000-foot large blood palm shot from the blood cloud in front of a countless number of shocked eyes. It ruthlessly slammed toward Xiao Yan. The might of the blood palm was extremely frightening, and an enormous palm outline appeared on the distant ground when it was still 10,000 feet in the air. Xiao Yan, watch how this venerable self shall slam you into dust. What arrogant words! Xiao Yan's eyes turned cold when he heard the explosive cry that was suddenly emitted from the fourth Tianzuan. His hand seal immediately changed, and a low cry was emitted from his mouth, 5-ring flame expelling coil. The enormous 5-colored fire coil in the sky suddenly shot forth, after Xiao Yan's cry sounded. Within a couple of flashes, it tore through empty space and ruthlessly collided with the huge blood palm. Bang! The two collided in a frightening manner, and a cold blood and hot flame exploded in the sky. Terrifying energy swept apart in front of many shocked eyes. At this moment, even the clouds had been forcefully shattered into dust. The fourth Tianzuan narrowed his eyes as he watched a frightening energy hurricane form in the sky. He had just pulled back by some distance when a chill was transmitted from behind him. He suddenly turned his head, and a face that contained an icy smile appeared within his eyes. Xiao Yan. Seeing Xiao Yang suddenly appear behind him, the fourth Tianzuan abruptly shrank despite his attitude. He had failed to sense just when Xiao Yang had moved. Great Heaven Creation Palm. A strange smile surfaced on Xiao Yang's face when he noticed the fourth Tianzuan's shock. His right hand violently slammed forward without any hesitation, and a dark black light circle was formed with lightning-like speed. Blood Demon Robe. Shock surfaced in 4th Qinzuan's heart, while he faced Xiao Yang's ferocious attack. Fortunately, he was not an ordinary person. Blood immediately flowed through his pores and quickly formed a thick cuticle layer on his body. Bang! Xiao Yang's palm wind was just like lightning as it ruthlessly smashed into the 4th Qinzuan's body. An incomparable wind caused the blood cuticle on the 4th Qinzuan's body to crack an inch at a time. Although there was the blood demon cuticle blocking the attack, the remnant wind still forced the 4th Qinzuan to spit out a mouthful of blood. His body borrowed this push to quickly fly backwards, trying to leave. The 4th Qinzuan's body had just flown back when a cold smile slid across Xiao Yang's face. Xiao Yang had finally managed to launch a sneak attack by using the opportunity created by the Do Chi void within the 4th Qinzuan's body after he had used the bloody evil sky demon palm earlier. How could Xiao Yang allow him to leave unharmed? The green-red ancient wings on Xiao Yang's back flapped, A, B, C. His body appeared to have teleported as it appeared in front of 4th Qinzuan, who was flying backwards. Xiao Yang reached out with his hand and 4 clusters of flames appeared. Soon after, an extremely beautiful fire lotus was formed in his palm. It's over. A ferociousness appeared on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth as he observed the shock that had surged onto the 4th Qinzuan's face. The 4th Qinzuan's heart became icy-cold when he saw the ferociousness on Xiao Yang's face. Each of those 3 Do skills that Xiao Yang had unleashed possessed a strength that was at the Qian class Do skill level. The perfect combination of those 3 Do skills caused even him to be unable to retaliate. No wonder so many experts from the Hall of Souls have fallen to this brat's hands. While the 4th Qinzuan was feeling extremely regretful of accepting this easy, but extremely dangerous task, the fire lotus in Xiao Yang's hand had been propelled forward without any hesitation. It ruthlessly struck onto the 4th Qinzuan's body. Bang! The moment it struck the 4th Qinzuan, a terrifying firestorm swept over the sky like a celebratory firework in front of a countless number of eyes the moment it struck 4th Qinzuan. A. Weren't they crystal clear with only a faint color? B. Actually, I am not certain. The author repeatedly changes things and even I end up getting lost. C. I think the most recent chapter that mentions them is when they go to the Doshing's temple thing. I think they were described as crystal clear then. Yeah, he always seems to be forgetting things and changing things up. Like randomly adding this 9 changes thing. This video will end here.